The SNP's Joanna Cherry claims she has been cancelled from appearing at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe for being a lesbian who holds gender-critical views. The MP was due to appear at the Stand Comedy Club in August, but the club says some key staff are unwilling to work at the event. So with me to discuss this, I'm joined by Dennis Kavanagh, director of the Gay Men's Network, and the poet Jenny Lindsay. Welcome both. I'm going to come to you first, Jenny, if you don't mind. Jenny, can I ask you, you're a poet, you're based in Scotland. You've experienced some kind of similar things to what Joanna Cherry has experienced recently. Perhaps you could tell us a bit about that.
God, it's really, really difficult to sum up what happened to me. It started in 2019 when I called out the violence of gender identity activism, specifically the publication of a justification for beating up lesbians at Pride. And when I did that, my entire life just changed overnight. And it followed the usual pattern. Once you receive the label TERF, then it just spirals out of control. And in 2020, it all went very, very public when some of my opponents tried to get me fired from a conference at the University of Strathclyde, which then led to me obviously opposing that, which then led to the Scottish Poetry Library getting involved and issuing a very strong statement opposing the no platforming calls by poets against other poets. And that led to almighty hell and the usual open letters and all of that kind of thing. And this was all a bit insane. And then lockdown happened. And during lockdown, I had been commissioned to write about my experiences for the Dark Horse Literary Journal. And I wrote an extensive 8,000-word essay about exactly what had happened. Because unlike some other women that this happens to, I am not a public figure. I am not a household name. And it is something that has completely changed my entire life and has meant that I need to do things like this to speak publicly about what's happened. And yeah.
Well,
Sorry, on you go.
People are going to be very, very surprised to hear the idea that there are activists out there who think they should physically attack lesbians at a Pride event. They'll think that's insane. We've seen more and more women being attacked for instance, at Kelly J. Keen's Let Women Speak events. Physical attacks we're talking about here, not just peaceful protests. And now this with Joanna Cherry. Joanna Cherry, a lesbian who campaigned against Section 28. How is it that people like Joanna Cherry are now being painted as the bad guys in all this?
Well, I think it's always worth going back to basics with this and remembering what it is that so-called gender-critical feminists actually believe. And all that we believe is that sex is materially definable, that it is legislatively important, and also that we must have public debate and robust debate about legislation that does affect more than one group here. And that is honestly what is at the root of this issue. And what the Stand has done in cancelling Joanna Cherry is they have not just cancelled Joanna Cherry, they have continued this ridiculous discourse that those gender critical principled views are somehow so hateful that people would be made unsafe. And I'm afraid that they've also really done a disservice to fellow comedians, comedians who've booked their venue for upcoming tours and who now actually, I've seen a couple of comedian friends, are having, their fans say to them, look, I'm really sorry, but I simply cannot come and see you perform in that venue. I will not support a venue that no platforms a women with perfectly reasonable beliefs. And they put a target on all women's heads, these venues, when they do this. Yeah.
No, I think that's an excellent point. And Dennis, I want to bring you in on that point, because this is what happens, isn't it? That people with perfectly legitimate, commonplace views are labelled as hateful and transphobic, and that legitimises violence against them. Yeah,
what they're doing is they're putting a target on the back of perfectly decent people who have unremarkable views. Joanna Cherry has extremely moderate views. She's in favour of equality for everyone under the Equality Act. She supports the Section 7 gender reassignment characteristic. She just happens to have a legally protected view under the law, under Forstater, that sex is real, it's important and it's immutable. And as J.K. Rowling said, this is the link with the feminism point. Without sex, there's no same-sex attraction, right? So if Joanna Cherry wants to make an argument on the basis of lesbian rights, and lesbian meaning same sex, then that definition of sex is important. And it is irresponsible in the extreme for outfits like this to hide behind their staff and behave as if she's in any way hateful. This is senior King's Counsel. This is the chair of the Parliamentary Equalities Committee. This woman fought Section 28. She's a gay rights legend. And for them to smear her in this fashion and to smear homosexuals in public life, like Kathleen Stock, like Julie Bindell, like Alison Bailey, like Simon Fanshawe, one of the founders of Stonewall, Harris speaking at Gonville and Keys on Friday this week, for homosexuals in public life to face this, and women more generally, for us to watch what we have to say. Joanna Cherry compared it to a new McCarthyism. To me, it feels like a new Section 28, feels like a new closet.
So let me ask you about the legal issues on this. Is the Stand behaving lawfully by deplatforming Joanna Cherry?
Well, if I can quote Dr. Michael Foran writing about this, his view was that it will almost certainly had behaved unlawfully. Pursuant to Section 29 of the Equalities Act, you cannot directly discriminate against a protected characteristic. The argument here, and it seems to be made out on the fact, is they have said, we don't like what you think, you can therefore not perform here. Now, I can tell you, in law, as Dr. Foran and many other academics have said, that is no different to saying our staff don't like gay people, don't like black people, don't like Muslim people. And the fact that it's happened is one thing. For them to put a statement out and crow about it, in my view, is quite disgraceful.
Jenny, can I come back to you on this? I mean, surely part of the point of these kinds of no platformings of people like Joanna Cherry and indeed yourself is that part of the point is to intimidate others into silence, to sort of send a message and say, your views aren't acceptable and you better shut up. And that does work, doesn't it? Because a lot of people, they just stay well out of it.
Yes, absolutely. It really does. And on one level, I do understand why some people feel too frightened to speak out. I mean, I'm hardly a brilliant advert for it. It has really, really affected my income and my ability to make a living. And the thing is, the one thing that remains to me as a writer and a performer is platforming myself. And if venues are unwilling to even allow me to hire a space to do a spoken word show, then, you know, it really is time's up on this kind of thing. And we have to hold the line in this. And I have been working desperately for the last 4 years to try and get some of Scotland's leading lights and literary organisations to hold the line. I mean, we're talking about women being threatened and facing economic penury for being feminists. I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. And what I've had the last few days from this cabaret against hate speech guy, I feel absolutely no different emotionally from when in 2014 I had a stalker and police told me not to advertise where I was going to be performing because somebody might come along and harm me. And that is exactly the position that these activists are putting me in today, and it is disgraceful.
A lot of we've got two strands here, haven't we, Dennis? You know, there's the feminist aspect and the way in which women are being mistreated in all of this, and then gay people as well. And it does feel like we're stepping back in time by decades, doesn't it? You run the Gay Men's Network. It does feel like this is a new homophobia, right?
Yeah, as I said, it feels like a new closet. It feels like a new Section 28. And you'd think from what happened that Joanna Cherry was going to give some inflammatory speech at this event. Can I just make this point? She was there she was supposed to be there just to discuss her life in politics, just to discuss the independence campaign, what it's like being an MP. So it's not as if contentious speech is being silenced here. What's happening here is that her entire position in public discourse and her ability just to tell us a little bit about her life. Heaven forbid gay people might have role models they could go and listen to, talk about their life in politics. That's the right that we're losing. We're losing the right to hear from her.
Why didn't the venue just say to the staff, OK, you don't like it, so you don't have to work that night, we'll sort that out, don't worry about it? Why are they capitulating to teenagers working at the bar? It's
such a good question, isn't it? And I mean, we work on the basis that the statement's correct, and it wasn't just people working at the bar. They said it was staff and management, so apparently it went all the way through. But if that is true, and it is a gutlessness not to stand up to staff, and we've seen this again and again and again, particularly in artistic industries, we've seen this plenty of times in publishing. Well, the answer has to be this, doesn't it? We can't have equality law run in several sectors, but then just say, oh, doesn't count for that, doesn't count for that. Because if we do that, we have inequality before the law, and we have no-go areas for gay people and no-go areas for feminists. And that's completely contrary to civic discourse.
Dennis Kavanagh and Jenny Lindsay, thanks so much.